In a kingdom built on power, one man was raised as royalty, but born a slave. He had privilege, he had comfort, until the truth broke him. He ran from Egypt, from his past, from himself. Then a voice called his name from a fire that would not burn out. "Go back," the voice said, "to the empire that wants you dead. One demand, let my people go. One king who refused. Rivers turned to blood. Frogs fell from nowhere. Darkness swallowed a nation. But pride is louder than fear until midnight comes." Freedom began with a whisper and ended at the edge of the sea. When there was no way forward, the sea moved.
In the beginning, there was Egypt, which meant power, pyramids, and absolutely zero chill. The Israelites were stuck in forced labor, the ancient version of unpaid overtime with no HR department. Pharaoh ruled like a toxic CEO, obsessed with productivity and allergic to compassion. Pharaoh panicked. Too many Israelites, too much growth. Classic fear of losing control. So Pharaoh made a decision so bad it would still be talked about thousands of years later. That's when Moses was born, at the worst possible time, in the worst possible place. His mother did what any desperate parent would do. She put him in a basket and trusted the river. Pharaoh's daughter found the basket and accidentally adopted the future downfall of Egypt. Moses grew up in luxury, the enemy's house, eating the enemy's food, sleeping on very expensive pillows. But something always felt off. Moses had privilege and guilt buffering in the background. One day, Moses saw an Egyptian abusing an Israelite, and suddenly his anger went full offline mode. Moses reacted before thinking, which would become a recurring theme. Turns out murder doesn't age well, even without social media. So Moses ran from palace life to desert survival mode. He went from royal treatment to talking to sheep for company. Years passed. Moses settled down, got comfortable, which is usually when destiny shows up unannounced. Then one day, a bush caught fire and refused to mind its business. Moses stared at it like, okay, either I'm dehydrated or this is serious. God spoke, not loudly, not dramatically, just confidently. God said, "You're going back to Egypt." Moses said, respectfully, "No." Moses stared at the burning bush like, "Just to be clear, you picked the wrong guy." God did not flinch, which is terrifying because confidence like that never negotiates. Moses said, "I'm not a speaker," which is ancient for public speaking gives me anxiety. God replied, "Who made mouths?" which shut down that argument immediately. Moses tried again. What if they don't believe me? A fair question, honestly. God said, "Throw your staff." Moses did. It turned into a snake. Conversation escalated quickly. Moses screamed internally and externally, mostly externally. God said, "Pick it up," which felt like terrible advice. Moses grabbed it. It became a staff again. Moses reconsidered every life choice. God said, "Fine, take Aaron, because every leader needs a PR manager." Moses thought, former prince, current shepherd, now prophet. Career paths were wild back then. So Moses went back to Egypt, the place he ran from, because destiny has no mute button. Aaron met Moses and said, "So God spoke to you too?" which instantly bonded them. They practiced speeches. It was bad. Aaron did most of the talking. Pharaoh had not changed. Still powerful, still proud, still absolutely not listening. Moses said, "Let my people go." Pharaoh heard, challenge accepted. Aaron threw down the staff, snake again, because visuals matter. Pharaoh snapped his fingers. Magicians copied it, which ruined the moment. Pharaoh laughed. Authority doesn't surrender just because you're right. Moses realized something important. This wouldn't be quick, or easy, or polite. Moses raised his staff. The river turned to blood, which instantly ruined everyone's morning. Pharaoh nodded like, "Huh, weird," and pretended this was totally fine. Then came frogs, in beds, in kitchens, in places frogs should never be. Pharaoh said, okay, make it stop. Progress, very temporary progress. The frogs left, so did Pharaoh's cooperation, classic move. Then came gnats, tiny, relentless, impossible to ignore, like bad notifications. The magicians tried copying this one. They failed and quietly panicked. They whispered, "This is the finger of God." Pharaoh heard them. Pharaoh ignored them. Flies arrived next, aggressive, personal, targeted. Pharaoh said, "Fine, worship, but not too far, because control dies slowly." Moses said no, politely, firmly, with zero wiggle room. The animals got sick, only Egyptian ones, statistically suspicious.
Pharaoh checked the data himself, still said no. Delusion is powerful. Then boil showed up. Painful, visible, impossible to spin. The magician stopped coming to work. Medical leave, indefinite. Pharaoh still refused. At this point, it was personal. Moses warned about hail. Some listened, most didn't. Fire and ice fell together. Nature said, I'm done being subtle. Pharaoh apologized, again, with the sincerity of a bad apology text. Moses noticed the pattern. Pressure on, Pharaoh yields. Pressure off, Pharaoh lies. Locusts rolled in like a biblical DLC pack. Everything green, gone. Pharaoh's advisors whispered, Sir, this is getting expensive. Pharaoh called Moses back like, okay, what's the minimum requirement here? Pharaoh offered, men can go, women and kids stay. Control, still intact. Moses said no, again, because half freedom isn't freedom. Pharaoh snapped, negotiation phase, terminated. Then darkness hit Egypt, not nighttime, existential darkness. For 3 days, nobody moved, which forced people to think. But in Goshen, lights on, full brightness. Pharaoh whispered, fine, go, just leave your livestock. Moses said, we're taking everything, because freedom doesn't travel light. Pharaoh said, see my face again and you die. Overreaction? Slightly. Moses replied, you won't see me again. Mic drop energy. But before leaving, Moses delivered the last warning, and the room got quiet. At midnight, the firstborn will die. Silence followed. Even the guards felt it. This wasn't symbolic. This was final. Pharaoh hardened again. Pride is loud, until it's alone. God told Israel, prepare a lamb, stay inside. They marked their doors. Faith sometimes looks strange from outside. The clock moved toward midnight. Egypt slept. Destiny did not. Midnight arrived, and Egypt exhaled, then immediately regretted it. A cry rose through Egypt. Not political, not strategic, personal. Pharaoh's palace went silent. Even pride knows when it's outmatched. He called for Moses at night. No throne, no ego, just surrender. Go, Pharaoh said. All of you, just go. Israel packed fast, bread unfinished, adrenaline fully activated. Egyptians handed over gold, because sometimes trauma changes generosity levels. And just like that, slaves became travelers. Movement became freedom. Then Pharaoh thought, wait, who's doing the labor now? And ego rebooted. Chariots rolled out, because pride rarely retires peacefully. Israel hit the Red Sea. Water ahead, army behind. Options? Limited. They turned to Moses like, was the desert not spacious enough for graves? Old Moses might panic. New Moses. He paused. God said, raise your staff. Again. The sea divided, not metaphorically, physically. They walked through water walls, which instantly became the most viral miracle ever. Egypt chased in, confidence levels, irrational. When Israel reached safety, the water reconsidered everything. The sea calmed, and for once, so did Pharaoh. Moses looked at the people. Freedom wasn't easy, but obedience was worth it.